Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the arse of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. I would like to reach out and say a huge thank you to those of you who have supported Cryptids Roost financially. We pray the good Lord replenishes you abundantly, and to those of you who will, later on. We pray the good Lord bless you as you do so, and also a huge thank you to everyone for always supporting the channel with your likes, comments and shares as well. It is all very much appreciated. God bless you all. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. We are fast approaching 500 subscribers. To celebrate this milestone, we will be running a competition when we hit it. The competition will be open to everyone. Details on this will be available closer to this time. I'm a PI and I think I'm chasing a monster. Part 3. This awesome series is written by cfalnevermore, a wonderful author over on Reddit. And if you would like to read more of their works, the Reddit link to their profile will be below in the description. I was given permission to post this, provided I changed the name and all. This woman had a really compelling story to tell. It's not just about whatever I might be chasing either. Here's her story. I couldn't stop pacing. Things in my house were moving, stuff disappearing, and the police couldn't or wouldn't do anything else to help me. I stopped briefly to look at myself in my antique mirror, a gift from my mother. I barely recognised the woman staring back. The constant state of anxiety I'd been in over the past 2 months was destroying me. My eyes looked dead and grey. My auburn hair was wild and greasy, and I just looked exhausted. When did I last sleep? I wondered aloud. I made an effort to smooth my appearance over. I expected company any minute. Inwardly, I laughed at myself. Really dizzy? A private eye who specialises in the occult? Are you that desperate? I absolutely was. The knock came minutes later. I checked the peephole and found a young man in a brown trench coat standing in the hallway. He was maybe in his late 20s, a bit rugged and had beautiful blue eyes. Blue like the ocean. I might have thought he was cute if I were in any shape to think of such things. I cracked open the door but left the chain fastened. Can I help you? Desiree Hauser? The man asked. Yes. I'm Aidan Thomas, PI. We spoke on the phone. Please, come in. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the door and ushered the stranger inside. Would you like a drink? I asked as I pointed him to the couch. No thank you. His loss. It was past noon, but frankly I couldn't care less. I got my bottle of hooch and poured it over some ice. I watched the stranger as I worked. His eyes wandered thoughtfully around my apartment. I noticed something odd about his breathing, in that he seemed to be doing it all through his nose. Was he about to start having a panic attack? Was he smelling something? I shrugged it off and spilled myself into my chair. Aidan looked at me. You look really tired. Still can't sleep? I just shook my head and took a long swig. My guest looked sympathetically towards me. I couldn't decide if it felt patronising or not. Then he pulled out a notepad and a pen. Okay, we covered most of the details over the phone, but I'd like to go over everything with you one more time to make sure I've got it right. Is that okay with you? Tell me one thing first. Are you for real? He snickered at the question. I get that a lot. You claim to specialise in weird. Your site was full of occult references. That stuff isn't supposed to be real. most people who peddle that stuff are either con artists or just crazy." "I have a feeling that if you believed that, you wouldn't have called me," he replied calmly. "I can't explain what's happening to me. You were sort of my last resort." "Like I mention on my site, if I find nothing, you'll be charged nothing. If you think I'm conning you, I'll hear you out. I'm not trying to swindle anyone. I'll do what I have to prove it." I chugged down some more cheap whiskey. Aidan shot me another concerned look as I set the glass down. "Don't give me that look. Let's get this part over with." "Sorry." He fumbled with his notes for a moment. "So, you moved into this apartment a year ago and everything was fine. But 2 months ago, you think it became haunted?" I nodded. "That's when the weird shit started." "Just noises at first?" "Yes." "Then things went missing. Was there a certain type of object in particular that went missing? Jewels? Clothing?" "Laundry." Aidan raised an eyebrow at that. "Mostly undergarments?" "Yes." "Anything else?" "Not that I noticed." "Then things started to move?" "Something kept pulling the sheets off my bed." "While you were sleeping?" "Yes." I took another long drink. "There's more I didn't mention to you. I will now. The cops know this part, but several times I woke up with my shorts pulled down." Aidan gave me a shocked look. "That's terrifying. Did the police check you for signs of sexual assault?" I sighed. "They found nothing." Aidan scribbled furiously. "Next came the incident last week. I'll explain what happened once more, but that's it. Understand?" "Of course. You don't have to if you don't want to." "I want to. I'm hoping it will prove I'm not crazy." I finished my glass and started pouring some more. "Last week I woke up and I couldn't move. My body felt cold. The doctors kept saying it was sleep paralysis. Maybe it was, but that bedroom had always been 85 degrees. I shouldn't have felt so cold. Then I heard something moving around my room. It almost sounded like skittering. I felt the blankets get tugged off of me and something crawled onto the bed with me." "Desiree, you don't have to go on." I looked up at the PI. His eyes were filled with concern. It seemed genuine. I noticed how white my knuckles were, so I took a few deep breaths and sucked down some more alcohol. Aidan surprised me then. "That's a bad way to stop a panic attack." He went to my kitchen and returned with a glass of water. I was going to protest, but in the end I took it gratefully. "Thanks." Once I felt composed again, I continued. "I couldn't see well in the dark. Whatever was there, it pulled my pants down. I could barely even feel it, but I saw what it was doing. It just sat there, looking at my vagina." The PI didn't wince at the word like the officer had. "I don't know how long that lasted. I passed out again at some point. Woke up that morning with no sheets and no pants. I felt so sick too. I called the police. They searched my apartment but found nothing. They recommended a doctor. The doctor says I might have an illness, maybe physical, maybe mental. I suppose that could be, but something was in my bed, and it wasn't a freaking person. I can't decide if that makes it better or worse." I let a few tears flow as I concluded. "I've been afraid to sleep since then." Aidan finished scrawling in his notebook before looking sadly up at me. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." He sat there in silence for a time. "I'll see what I can find. May I look around?" I just nodded miserably. "You won't find anything. The doctors have to be right." Aidan knelt down and looked me in the eye. Hey, whether I find something or not, you aren't crazy. That made me feel better. I'll be back. He began poking around my crappy little one-bedroom. Once again, he used his nose. He seemed to sniff at the air, then skulk his way towards things to sniff them some more. Occasionally, he'd lift something up to inspect it. I heard him sniffing repeatedly as he disappeared into the bathroom and later the bedroom. "Are you sniffing my apartment?" I asked, incredulously. "You'd be amazed what you can tell when you take the time to sniff around," he replied, sounding almost casual. "Right." He looked up at me and winced at the creeped out look on my face. "For example, you ate eggs, I think scrambled, this morning, a steak last night, and I'm thinking a McDonald's burger for lunch." I could only blink in surprise. He was right. I have a closed garbage can too, so it's not like he could have seen the trash. "I promise, I'm not a weirdo. Well, I'm a bit weird, but I'm not sniffing around for nothing. I've got a good nose." "Have you found anything?" I asked after an awkward pause. "Yes. I need to make a phone call, then I'm going to look around the building. I'll be back in an hour or so. If you're well enough, why not get yourself food?" "Yeah, maybe I will." Just like that, the unusual PI left me alone. I had absolutely no idea what to make of the man. He seemed genuine in his concern, but what was his deal? Does he really have a super-powered nose? Numbly, I unwrapped some leftovers and heated them in the microwave. Netflix played episode after episode of something I wasn't really watching. Recalling my experience had trapped it in my thoughts. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, 2 hours had passed, the sun was setting, and someone was knocking at my door. I shook myself awake and tried to smooth my hair as I sprang from the couch. It was Aidan. He sniffed once before saying, "Leftover pasta? Sounds yummy," he grinned as he stepped inside. He had a box of occult-looking paraphernalia with him. He sat down on my couch again. "How are you feeling?" "Still terrified, still confused, and still exhausted," I said curtly. "Can you tell me what's going on or not?" "I've got a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with. I definitely caught a whiff of something. This isn't a standard haunting, but it is a haunting." "Like a ghost?" "Something like that, yes. First, I need to ask some really awkward questions. I apologise profusely, but I assure you they are relevant to the case." I felt my suspicions return. "Alright, what is it?" "Are you dating anybody?" I think my eyes rolled out of my bed. "No." "Have you been intimate with someone in the past 4 months? "Excuse me?" "I promise you it's relevant. Specifically, have you had relations with any men?" "No," I said angrily. I was lying. I'd had a spirited fling a few months ago after a night out clubbing, but that was none of this creep's business. He looked up apologetically. "Any irregularities in your menstrual cycle?" I think I just glared. I wanted to believe he was genuine, but no, he just seemed like another weirdo. "No, mine is always irregular." "Forget it. With your permission, I'm going to perform a few rituals and hang some charms around your apartment. I'll be in town for a few days. If you don't have any more incidents, we can be certain we exorcised what's haunting you. If it does nothing, you won't be charged any money. Sound good?" "Not really. What the hell kind of private eye are you?" "You called me because you don't think the police or your doctors were right in their assessment that this is all stress related and in your head, right? You saw something. It scared the hell out of you. You feel that dread every waking moment now, right?" Damn him for being absolutely right. I'm scared in my own home. "Let me try this. If it doesn't help, no charge. You have nothing to lose. I thought about it for a long time. The cops had scoured my apartment twice now. They'd found nothing. The doctors believed I was ill. Maybe I was. Let me ask, you don't think this is all in my head? You think I actually saw something? I do, but I don't think you should stop seeing the doctor. Whether your stress is the cause of the problem or the problem is caused by the stress, I don't think you are well. I do think I can help with the problem though. And if I'm not satisfied, you won't ask me to pay? I will not. It may take a few days to know if it's working. Okay, fine. Do it. I'll try anything at this point. I came close to calling in the Catholic Church. Aidan spent 15 minutes hanging cloves of garlic around the place, mostly in doorways. He chanted something that sounded like gibberish to me. I was kind of convinced he was some sort of con artist, but he promised me he wouldn't charge unless I wanted him to. He was right. What did I have to lose? I followed and watched as he entered my room, hanging charms of various faiths on the window. He stopped suddenly and did one of his sniffs. His eyes darted towards my ceiling. "Is that where you're hiding?" he muttered to himself. I followed his gaze. There was an air vent. Seriously? Something was hiding in my vents. This can't be real. Aidan hung a whole string of garlic cloves from that vent before moving on. When he was finished, he turned to me. "That should take care of the bedroom. As you can see, I've hung garlic. Lots of things like this have an allergy to the stuff. The smell alone can keep them away. I've also hung charms and blessings from various wolf faiths around. We can also lay a line of salt on your windowsills, but I'll leave that up to you." "Is this thing a vampire?" He hesitated before answering. "Possibly." "And it's repelled by holy symbols?" "It's repelled by faith. These charms were blessed by holy men and women of their respective religions. The words I spoke should just wake them up. Jewish, Christian, Hindu, Islam, even Voodoo. If there's faith, some creatures may be repelled." "You don't strike me as a religious sort." "I'm not. You want me to take them down?" A week ago I would have said yes. I haven't had a lot of faith lately, but we can keep them up, at least for now. I sat on the couch, leaving Aidan to stare at my windows for some reason. When he finished whatever he was doing, he stepped into the living room. "For now, that's all I can do. I'm staying at the inn just across town. You have my number. Feel free to call me with any updates. I opened up a window in your bedroom. You can close it if you want, but I recommend leaving it open. If it has nowhere else to go, it should leave." "That seems sketchy as hell," I said dryly. "Whatever you feel comfortable with. I'll leave you be. Keep in touch." He gave me an apologetic nod before darting out of my apartment. I was pretty well convinced he was full of shit. Some sort of mini vampire was hiding in my vents. That's more crazy than me being crazy. That just made me depressed and angry. I got more hooch. I sat around stewing for most of the evening. My friends weren't calling much these days. The charming guy I'd invited home had left me his number, but I hadn't called him back, mostly because I found the condom on the floor, unused. Bastard. It must have slipped off. I'm still furious, and now here I was, insane in the eyes of friends and family, and calling a quack paranormal profiteer to help me. I downed more whiskey and wished my friends would call. Finally, after another 3 drinks, I dragged my drunk ass to the bedroom. I walked face first into the string of garlic Aidan had hung from the vent. I tore it down in my frustration. Just to spite Aidan further, I closed and locked my window too. I didn't bother with my clothes after that. I just slumped into bed and passed out. It was impossible to know what time it was, but I woke up at some point desperately in need of a toilet. I tried to rouse myself, but I couldn't. My limbs wouldn't obey me. I was cold, numb and paralysed. My eyes flew open as I realised what was happening. Aidan was a fraud. The garlic and charms were supposed to prevent this. This shouldn't be happening. I felt my terror building. Tears flowed from my eyes as a shadow danced around my walls. I watched spindly, bug-like limbs carefully remove the vent from my ceiling from inside. They pulled it into the ventilation shaft and out of sight. And then something squeezed its way out of the shaft and skittered across my ceiling. I heard it squeal like an angry pig. It was hard to follow its movements, and it definitely wasn't happy about the charms or garlic around the room. Then I remembered drunkenly tearing the garlic off that vent. Aidan was right after all. I tried to cry out, but of course I couldn't. I was utterly helpless. The thing scurried about on the ceiling like an insect, simply searching for a safe spot to climb down. Finally it found a spot. Its squealing intensified as it scurried past the Star of David, but it still made it to the floor and out of my sight. I could do nothing as the inhuman creature crawled its way up my bedside on spindly limbs. I caught glimpses of a bulbous black body and gourd-shaped head that was way too large for its shoulders. I think it had compound eyes, like an insect. There was a pink hole in its head. Some sort of appendage slid obscenely out of it and writhed about, like some awful tentacle. Using wicked-looking little clawed hands, it began pawing up my pants, trying to figure out my belt and buckles. I tried so hard to scream. I got distracted for a second by something snapping. I glanced down and found my window sliding open, seemingly on its own, or at least I thought so at first. But no, something was there. I could almost see a shimmering and a shadow, but it was like light bent away from it. Something had broken my window open and entered my room. I live on the 7th floor. How the hell? Next thing I knew, the shimmering stopped and a horrible figure appeared instead. Sharp teeth, grey fur, wicked claws, a vicious snarl and blue eyes. I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't want anything more to do with either of these demons. This had to be a nightmare. There was a flurry of noise. A deep canine growl was followed by a pig-like shriek. The weight of the horrible bug goblin pouring at my hips was torn away. After a moment things went still. I opened my eyes. I didn't see anything. I still couldn't move, but I seemed to be alone. Then a shadow rose from the foot of my bed. The figure was tall and grey. I was looking at its back. Its pointed ears twitched and then its head turned, and I saw a long snout and a wet-looking nose. It looked very much like a wolf. The moonlight illuminated the creature. I squeezed my eyes shut when I saw its strange blue eyes looking straight at me. After a minute or two of tense silence, there was a rustling sound, and I was shocked when a comforting warmth enveloped me. I slid one eye open, but I couldn't see much. A blanket was over me. It was a dream, right? For some reason, despite my terror, my heart rate slowed and somehow I fell back asleep. When I woke up again, it was morning. I felt sick, but at least a little rested. To my immense relief, I could move now. It was all a nightmare, I told myself. Then I had to sprint to the toilet so I could throw up. Looks like the garlic hadn't made me feel any less sick. On my first look around, I found nothing amiss in my room. My window was fine, still latched. With nothing else to do, I showered and ate breakfast. I had just convinced myself that last night, it was a horrible nightmare, and that Aidan was indeed a fraud. but at some point a thought occurred to me. I'd passed out fully clothed on top of my sheets. How did a blanket get on me? I walked into my bedroom to look at my bed. The blanket on top wasn't a bed sheet. It was the snuggie I kept next to the couch. I hadn't touched it last night. How had it made its way onto me? I remembered the nightmare. The wolf thing glancing towards me, and then a bit later, sudden comforting warmth. Something retrieved my snuggie and draped it over me. That couldn't be possible. My window wasn't actually broken, right? I went to examine it closer, where I noticed something off. The latch was different from the faded bronze one I was used to. The one on there now was shiny and new. I'd looked at the latches just last night. This wasn't the same latch. How did it change? Did something break open my window, then replace the broken latch? Something strange had happened. Did I actually see a blue-eyed wolf creature? They were blue, sort of like Aiden's. I did the only thing I could think to do. I called the number he had left me. He sounded tired.
Hello?
It's Desiree.
Oh, good afternoon. Did the charms work?
I don't know.
If something happened, just say so. I'll be there to pick up the charms. You're welcome to keep the garlic. I don't think your problem is coming back.
Were you at my apartment last night?
His voice stuttered. What? Did someone break in?
Something was wrong with the way he was talking. I listened to people talk all day as part of my job. I know when someone is dodging a question.
Can you come to my building now? Why?
I want answers, and you know more than you're letting on.
I prefer a place with a bit of privacy. You can take whatever precautions you want.
There's nobody on the bottom level of my parking garage. I'll open it for you. He sighed on the other end. He sounded as tired as I felt.
Give me 20 minutes. I haven't eaten. I'm starving.
He hung up. I gathered up the charms and garlic he'd left and packed them in a box before taking the elevator to the garage. It was empty as usual. Aiden pulled in minutes later, his cheeks stuffed with fast food. He sheepishly swallowed as he stepped out of his car to meet me.
Let me just clarify. You were dissatisfied with my service?
Just listen, you haven't given me a straight answer. You never told me what you thought was haunting my apartment. You never even told me if you were for real. I talk to people for a living. I know when an honest person is trying to avoid answering a question.
What makes you think I'm honest?
You keep trying to talk me into not paying you. I thought you were creepy for a bit, but I couldn't shake that part. You also seem genuine, but that doesn't matter. Something happened last night. I woke up again. I was paralysed just like before. Same horrible little thing crawled over me. I shuddered at the memory. Something else was there this time. Something with blue eyes. Just like yours. Aiden looked defeated.
Miss Hauser, Desiree, I want you to know something before you continue. This could be easy. You're under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. You could just tell yourself it's all stress. It's reasonable that you need it to take a few days. You can leave it at that and never have to worry again.
That's not the truth, is it? He looked at me gravely.
No.
Will knowing put me in danger? Aiden seemed to ponder that question for a time.
Not directly, no. But there's no going back once you know, and knowing can be nightmarish.
I need to know. He sighed.
Come take a look.
He brought me to the trunk of his car. He glanced this way and that, checking for other people. When he was satisfied we were alone, he popped his trunk. It was empty. What am I looking at? He leaned inside and spoke quietly. Wabi. There was a strange ghostly flash of light, and a plus-sized peg carrier appeared from thin air. Inside was a disturbing but familiar figure. Its bulbous body and oversized head lay there almost lifelessly before I could hear its wheezing breaths. I wasn't dreaming. It was all real.
Yes,
Aidan replied. I'm not crazy. There really was a monster.
This thing is one of many. There's lots of monsters. We humans have inklings that they're there. We've been told tales of them since we began. There may even be some creatures from before that.
Vampires, werewolves, they're all real? Aidan smirked.
Pretty much, yes. Most of them aren't all that monstrous. Just living their lives, which is tough for a lot of them. Then there's some like this little bugger. It's called an aswang. It's more of an animal than a person.
How did you make it invisible?
Magic.
Magic is real too? You can do magic?
Even among people like us, it's not well understood. I can't use it, but a friend of mine is a sorcerer. He whipped up this crate with a glamour charm. Lets me transport things like this without drawing any attention.
I just stared at the impossible thing in front of me for a time. It was some bizarre mix of humanoid and insect. Everything about it filled me with revulsion. Finally, I couldn't handle looking at it anymore, so I looked at Aidan. Who are you really? I asked after a minute or two.
Exactly who I said I was. Aidan Thomas, P.I. I specialise in weird things.
Why didn't you tell me the truth before?
Would you have believed me?
You're telling me now. If you don't care about people knowing, why try to hide it from me at all?
It's easier to believe in a world where these things aren't real. I like to give people the option. I met a guy who refused to accept that he saw anything, even after he had been attacked. The damn thing had scales and wings, but he still insisted it was a dog with mange. Hell, after I leave, you might decide I'm just a trickster and this is all elaborately staged. People don't want to believe their eyes. It was frustrating to me once, but I had trouble letting go of my old life too.
Why, tell me then.
I felt that not knowing would haunt you more than knowing. I hope I wasn't wrong. Now, there are people that will pay me pretty well for returning this little bastard alive. So you're off the hook. I'm sorry the garlic didn't help. That's weird actually.
I knocked it down. I was drunk and clumsy.
Ah, well, I'm glad I stayed nearby. I knew if it came for you, I would smell it.
So that wolf thing, it was you. You were invisible too.
I used a glamour. It's another magic tool my friend made. I'd rather not get spotted in the city.
I looked at him, but I didn't know what else to say. I'd been gaslighting myself for 2 months. What the hell else was real? I felt a headache brewing.
Don't worry, Desiree. Normal life will still be possible. The magic world doesn't want to be found. I need to get going. Is there anything else I can answer before I give you some bad news?
Bad news? I doubt you can say anything to make me more shocked and confused.
I'm pretty sure you're pregnant.
Not gonna lie, that one kind of broke me. I stand corrected.
This thing, the aswang, is normally found around the Philippines. It's a nocturnal, carnivorous, sort of fey type creature. Their preferred food,
Aidan took a shuddering breath before finishing,
is unborn fetus sucked from its mother's womb. I had a feeling that's what I was dealing with when you told me you woke up paralysed and cold. There's few creatures that paralyse sleeping people to feed, but using a numbing paralytic is a bit more rare. That's why I asked if you'd been dating last night.
Huh. I'm not sure if the noise was a response or just a bewildered sound escaping my throat.
I was hoping to keep you from figuring everything out, so I decided to sneak back at night and keep my nose open, in hopes of catching the little freak. It worked.
Aidan whispered a word again, and the ghostly light flashed. The Aswang was invisible to my eyes. He closed his trunk and looked at me sadly.
I won't pry, but you might want to get yourself tested. Do what you need to. It was a pleasure meeting you, Desiree. I'm sorry.
Wait, what are you?
Just a guy,
he replied as he slipped into his car.
Oh, one more thing. I had to break your window to get in. I brought a replacement and did the best I could to get it on there. Wasn't easy with claws. If you don't trust my work, feel free to call someone. I'll pay any bills.
He stuffed another breakfast sandwich into his mouth as he started up his vehicle. I struggled to find something to say, but I was kind of fried. All I managed was, "Thanks for the blanket." He smiled and nodded. Then he drove off. I headed back upstairs and I just laughed. Somehow, an unexpected and unwanted pregnancy had become the least shocking thing about my morning. A monster that eats fetuses, a hidden magic world, a werewolf PI. What else could I do but laugh? So that's Desiree's tale. The blue-eyed wolfman sure sounds a lot like the one Hope described to me. It sounds even more like the werewolf Dennis described at the bar. Desiree thought he was a werewolf too, but he'd never outright said it. She gave me another clue too. They had glamours or something that made them invisible. That could explain why I didn't see anyone leave the doctor's house during my stakeout. Thing is, to accept that, I'd have to accept that magic, werewolves, Aswangs, I make my own fun, and God only knows what else are all real. After that tall lady and the mystery bartender, it's not all that hard for me to entertain the notion. I have no idea what the facts are anymore. I'd hoped avoiding politics for the last 5 years would keep this shit away from me. I sat down with Desiree. I'm pretty good at reading people, and I don't think she was lying. She definitely believes she saw what she saw. What she's done with herself since then is her business. I wish her the best. I'll be looking into the name she gave me. Aidan Thomas, fellow PI and possibly a werewolf. Are you the one that helped rescue Hope? Am I seriously considering it? Did you actually wear a brown trench coat like a walking detective cliché? Do I want to know the truth? I think I do. Don't forget, if you enjoyed that story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. I'm sure they really would appreciate it. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Oh, and don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will all help with YouTube's algorithm and will help to promote this channel more. And don't forget to check out the merch store. The link will be in the description and also in the video thumbnail. And if you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. I now have my very own subreddit community where you can submit any stories you've written. You can submit your stories or encounters either there or send them to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. All the links are below. I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit, and you'll also find me on Discord. If you would like to support this channel and help make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that will also be below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.